What's up, your backup plan tribe? I'm so happy to be here with everyone today. You are going in for a big surprise. Do you know someone that has had a miscarriage? Know someone that has had a miscarriage? Or dealt with a horrible miscarriage or loss of a baby, a stillborn perhaps? It used to happen, it seemed like, in books. Back in the early 1900s, 1800s, probably because they didn't have the best of places to birth these children. But who knows what the reasoning is now. And I'm so excited to have Andrea Whalen on our show today. I can't speak for wanting to speak. Surviving the unthinkable, overcoming the pain of baby loss, trauma, and abuse. And I think it's a really important topic today because we really don't realize how much the trauma of the baby loss and the miscarriage, perhaps, or the stillborn, whatever the situation is for you or the ones that you know, has had an effect on your mental health and your physical health and your emotional, spiritual health. So I'm so excited to have Andrea come on. She is an author and a CEO of Ganga Moon Yoga and Reiki School. She's also a mom, so she has so much information for us. And if you are new here, welcome to our show. My name is Tina, and I'm excited to be here and be talking TABOO with Tina podcast. And it's brought to you by Your Backup Plan team. And I'm so excited to introduce myself. If you haven't already liked, shared, and subscribed to our channel, please do. I am a mom as well, a real person, and I'm on a mission to help families and individuals face life's curveballs head on. And that's what we're all about here today. But getting into that in a little bit more depth, let's get the party started.
In the blink of an eye, life can change dramatically. On our podcast, Talking Taboo with Tina, we delve into these life-altering events with celebrities, authors, and everyday people just like you. You'll also discover Your Backup Plan app, a life-organizing tool designed to prepare you for any unexpected circumstance. It's your safety net, taking the sting out of tragedy. Imagine a plan B that ensures your finances are safe, even in the worst-case scenario. But it doesn't end there. Join our vibrant Facebook group for free webinars on backup planning and secure your future today.
Welcome back. And here's Andrea. Welcome, Andrea, all the way from Ontario, Canada.
Thank you. Thanks, Tina. Thanks for having me.
Normally, I'd say the cold part of the country, but it hasn't been this year. So you've been very, very lucky.
I've only shoveled the driveway one time here in Ontario. And
That's awesome.
I'm between Niagara Falls and Toronto.
So yeah, you could get a lot of snow there, right? That normally.
Usually we'll get some from Buffalo, some things like that. But
yeah,
pretty mild here today.
So Andrea, you are a coach as well. You help and guide women at your yoga business and Reiki school. And I'm so excited to have you on. I can't believe you've had 10 miscarriages. And I can't believe that how you've gotten through all of the trauma and abuse. I have had Andrea on the show before. Her link is down below in the description box, as well as the previous show if you want to watch the kind of the other part of Andrea that she came on our show last year. So welcome, Andrea. Where did it all start for you for this awful journey that we've had to endure?
I'll just make one correction. I've had 10 pregnancies. It took 4 years and 4 months to have my first baby boy. So sweet. Didn't take too much long after that to get pregnant again. And that was my baby boy, Luca, who I did lose at about 25, 26 weeks. That's my baby boy. Luckily enough, I had my youngest son here with me now. He was born after that baby loss. planning a funeral. We can talk about things like that. It's so hard.
Yes.
After that, I lost a baby, or miscarried, actually about 20 weeks or so. And then 15 weeks and 12 weeks, 10
Wow.
weeks, 8 weeks, and then 7 weeks and 7 weeks.
Wow.
Mhm.
And do you know what any of them are other than the one that was older? He was a boy.
That was my baby boy, Luca. Yeah. You know, how I see it now is it all comes back to nature. And I think that conversations like this are so important because they can offer a new story to people instead of the older stories that we were told about miscarriage. Say, so I was growing up in the 70s, 80s, more the 80s. But there wasn't much conversation. There wasn't much talk about what an actual miscarriage is. And let's define that. Like a miscarriage is a spontaneous abortion or an expulsion of the embryos, or the chromosomes just aren't quite right. And that's what happens. That's what we're
Yeah.
talking about. But when I was in school, the story was this. The story was use protection. You need the birth control pill. If you have sex, you are going to get pregnant. Period. So then here comes my life, and I meet someone, and I was older, and it took 4 years and 4 months to get pregnant, and which I love because I see it as a miracle that even happened. But
Yeah.
the story didn't fit. The story I was told didn't seem quite right. When Luca passed away, Tina, I think it took me 8 years to be able to even say that happened, at least. That was in 2008. I had no story for that. I had no security blanket for that. I was totally, until even on the day I knew that it was going to happen, I felt a trickle down my leg, and I thought, oh, my water broke.
Yeah.
Just the hope inside the human heart, right? And I looked down and it was blood. And I'll tell you,
That must have been a scary thought.
it's just like a blank page. It really is. It's just, there's no preparation. There's no preparedness. It didn't seem natural. How could it be me? I was so traumatized. I was so traumatized. However, at the same time, which is kind of the story of my life, I did have my firstborn son, which had already taken 4 years and 4 months. And so I did see that as a miracle happening, because I know full well it may not have happened. And so the mantra that I had going through the trauma, what I said to myself over and over was, I just want to be a good mom. I just want to be a good mom. And so I had my baby while I was planning the funeral for my baby. And it could have went two ways. It really could have, because that just blank space of terror, of I don't know if I even have the words now.
Shock, I guess. I don't even, I don't know what the
To
words are.
describe that. Yeah, I don't even know. Like, how many women are planning a funeral for their baby, holding a baby. Like, anyway, this is the point of having the conversation.
And how do you do that, Andrea?
I had my mantra was I wanted to be a good mom. And if I went down the rabbit hole with Luca, then I wouldn't have been a good mom for the baby I had. I really wouldn't have. And that whole 4 years that I was like, how come I'm not getting pregnant? How come that? What do you mean? I thought like you have sex and get pregnant, right?
Yeah.
It's not true. The story's not true. It's different for everybody. And everybody is a snowflake. And people need to hear that and know that, so that when these things happen, there's a middle path. I found yoga. So this is probably what helped with my grief a lot, was finding that middle path. But when we can see that it's not quite what they said and something else might arise, then we can maybe manage the suffering a little bit easier.
Yeah.
To keep going, perhaps.
So tell me, Andrea, you explained what you felt like. What about your husband? What happens with the relationship with the husband aspect?
I was doing some research for the show earlier today, and I was researching, how many miscarriages were there in 2023? I couldn't find the stats. I did find that 1 in 4 known pregnancies, this according to Washington Post, 1 in 4 pregnancies end in miscarriage. And I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the impact it has on the husband and on the relationship. I know for my own personal story, I was a woman in business in Ontario, and I owned a nutrition store at the time. And I had to send my husband at the time to the store to put a little note on the door that said family emergency, back in 2 days. There was no time. There was no time off. There was no one else to run the business. A sole proprietor. It was me. And what I don't know. I can honestly tell you, I don't know what it's like for the man, but I feel for the man in the situation. I know that for the woman, you are in love with that feeling inside of you from the second you feel that you're something different. Is my period late? Could it be? You fall in love. You love that child fiercely. And I think that love lasts for life. Yeah. And for the man, my heart breaks, because it's a shattered dream for them as well. When you're planning a family with someone you love, to have a piece of what you love there. And then, people buy the decorations. You plan, what are you going to do? Where's your vacation going to go? Disney. You're buying characters. This is a whole culture set up for these kinds of beautiful things, beautiful moments.
Exactly. Photos, parties. Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So tell me then, what is the feeling like once you realize? Did it take you very long to realize that it was what it was?
I didn't know there were so many different types of miscarriage, but there's second trimester. I think I've had three or 4 in the second trimester. Yep. Preterm delivery, the stillbirth, neonatal infant loss is a newborn baby younger than 28 days old, and termination of a desired pregnancy for when they do the screening beforehand to check the chromosomes and stuff. And some people are given that kind of news. I forget the question you asked me, sweetheart.
That's okay.
I wanted to say that there's different types, because I think when we say miscarriage, it's an umbrella. But but my whole point in being on the show is to shed some light where there's darkness, or where there might not be words for these things, right? And so that's why I did some research, so that I could have something to say. And so I could have something to say to reach more women that might not have heard that someone else has been through what they've been through, that might not know that there's 7 different types, because we just go through things. We don't always know exactly what they are. But
yes. And did it hurt? Because I can't say that I've ever heard of any woman saying that it didn't hurt.
So in my head,
pain,
it's
because your contractions start and your whole body does the thing.
Yeah, it's painful. More than the pain, I remember the trauma. I remember seeing the blood, the clumps of blood, the clots of blood, the tissue, the things that you've never seen ever before in your entire life, and that you didn't think could come from you, especially if you've had a baby. and you've had that experience and that security of birthing a beautiful baby. And then you have this opposite of just complete and utter disaster, a crime scene in the bathroom. Let's be real.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Let's be real.
So what can women do to get over this trauma slowly?
So I think having conversations like this and talking about it, for once, where I did the research, I was just at the desk printing off some statistics and stuff. And I asked the staff in the local place here, and I asked the staff, how many women do you think have had a miscarriage? And they loved the conversation. They both turned around in their chairs, have a little conversation about it. And I said, we're having this talk. And they said, good for you. And they each had a story about miscarriage. And I think if we do, both of them. And one lady knew a whole area in town where they had an old paper mill or something. And all of the ladies had experienced that, which kind of leads back to my theory that it's nature. And I'm not a professional anything, so I can't say what's this and what's that. But spiritually speaking, I have a lot of trainings. And I know for myself, see the way that I see it now and the story in my mind of it being nature helps me get on day by day without breaking down with these things. For me, at age 7, I had the gift of writing poetry and channeling poetry. And while I was going through this period of my life, which was actually about 10 years, most of my 30s, I spent pregnant, losing babies and having babies and all things reproductive issues. But I wrote through all of it. And wow. I do have a poem. I highlighted maybe 3 or 4 just for the conversation. And there's one that's just raw pain and the understanding of it all. And the book that I published in 2021, No Matter How Dark the Stain, Poems and Inspiration for the Woman in Pain. And this is why. I didn't know why I was writing it at the time. I knew it was healing me to get the feelings out. But now I know that if someone has a miscarriage and I hear about it, I'm sneaking this on the doorstep. That's what I'm doing. Because sometimes what I know for sure is there's a power of words, and cast a spell. And this is what we can use to touch each other's hearts. When the pandemic happened, it's through words that you can heal somebody and that we can heal and just shine a little light. And where there's light, there is not darkness. So this poem is a little bit raw. It's in the center of the book that says, there's a section that's about the thing about the heart, that it breaks. And because that's what happens to us sometimes. So I'll read it to you. It's called Fist of Hate. On pleasant earth, baby's breath unheard. Soul contemplates heaven. The mind reminds death, death, death. A step until the axis winds. Death more positively inclined. Selfish greed possessing veins. Truth betrayed. Contrasting view. White captures blue. A fist of hate I never knew. Contaminated blood, frying flesh. Death, death, death. No turning back. A black silhouette. And baby's breath. Never heard. Yeah.
Very nice.
It's a bit raw, but if we're being quiet about these things, they're not healing on their own. That's what I know for sure.
Yeah, I'm very surprised that the health system doesn't have something for women to get help.
There's what I printed off from StatsCan is they're putting $7.6 million into a study about these kinds of things, sexual reproductive health and surveys and that sort. But there's so many beautiful agencies that help women all the time about this. And apparently it says, and from my experience also, once having a miscarriage is very common. Most pregnancies, you won't know you had a miscarriage. And after so many, 3 or 4, then there is specialists and there's a whole industry to support women for that kind of thing. And you can go and see a specialist. So after a few of mine, I went to go see a specialist, genealogist, I might have said that wrong, genetics, They checked the
Gynecologist?
nope.
Genetics?
Well,
The genet,
yeah,
yeah.
the genetics. So they checked the genes of my husband. They checked the genes of mine to see if it was a gene problem, something. No, nothing. Then we went to another clinic and we did more testing and everything came back fine. Then we did another dye testing thing. They put some dye in and like see where it travels to see if like that's an issue, the route or something. I don't know the exact names of things because I'm numb and traumatized and just trying to uh, have a baby girl, I was trying to make my husband happy at the time. So I thought this was the way. But all of the tests from those places as well came back that everything's fine, nothing
Oh.
wrong, everything's fine. And then another miscarriage, another miscarriage, another miscarriage, and
Do you think it's just not meant to be?
like metaphysically speaking,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say nature. I just think it's nature. I just think just as the apples grow on the tree, Tina, and 47 turn out right, and some have big bruises and some fall off early.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with it. I think it's nature, and I think it's love.
Yes, true.
I do, but I know
And
you also have a story.
well, mine was very early on, so it was within the first 2 months. But yeah, it was very, very painful. And
Sorry.
I didn't feel like I had a lot of trauma around it at the time, other than the pain that you had to, you actually have to birth this, that you don't know what it is.
That's not a little thing. Like
No,
that's a huge. That's huge.
it is, but I think sometimes you don't really realize what you're going through. And
Yeah.
it's not till later that you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the hard part for some women in the situation as well. It could be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line.
I think
How do they cope with that feeling?
I think that is the way that the body naturally copes, the subconscious mind. Like if you go try to cut yourself with a knife, you subconsciously can't or won't, like for a period. And I think that happens with trauma too. Like especially for me, seeing when I saw that it was blood and not my water dripping down my leg, I
Right.
was out. I think I checked out for 8 years.
Well, I'm
From that.
surprised you didn't faint, because I'm sure the shock of seeing that.
Well, then I had to give birth.
Yeah. Were you all by yourself?
No, I had my baby. My son was there, and my husband.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no support enough for that. It just...
There wasn't, and I'm hoping that through people like yourself having podcasts and people like me having books that have written through the pain, I hope that comes together in a beautiful collaboration to touch some people. So that there can, because where there is light, there cannot be darkness. The mind cannot serve two masters. So if we can turn the light on and get talking about these things and not, just get talking about them, it will reposition itself in our mind in a different way. And what you and I both learned, I know for sure, is that you can handle hard things. So if somebody's listening and, has seen that extra blood or, has had, seen the tissue come out, the pain like you have. I don't remember the pain as much. I remember it spiritually and mentally more than physically.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
All I remember is the pain. the regular.
Yeah, you're right. The cramping. Yeah, it's like your body is convulsing to force something out. Oh my God. Yeah, you're so right. And that's another spot.
It can't be a happy situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me read a poem.
Sure.
Let me read a poem. This one. Where is it? Okay. This one I wrote to one of the babies after they passed. Loving you, feeling you in places I've never felt before. Hear your voice, feel your soul, filling voids I've never known. Without you, before you, wanting to be near you, listening, smelling, touching your endless skin, loving you. Tears from my heart warmly bless my cheeks, loving you, angel, from my universe of the deep. Wish you were here, beside me, skin to skin. Could we begin again? Never change a moment, loved you through them all. Angels near us, angels hear us. Love you, baby, love you, angel. Loving you has been it all. Love, mommy.
Oh,
Yeah. You know.
Was that hard to read?
Yeah. 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 All of my books that are dedicated to my 7 stars, my 3 boys that I have one, and my 7 stars I have tattooed on my shoulder.
Oh, nice.
I see them as stars. And, you know, sometimes my spiritual practice have taught me that it's the body that dies and the flesh that dies, but it's the love that remains the same. And when I did palliative care for 7 years in Toronto with the AIDS patients, and I would hold their hands as they took their last breath, I did learn that love is stronger than death. And yeah. It's a true story. So yeah, I go back and forth with the grief. I go back and forth with the pain. And the main thing is that I know I'm not alone, and I know that this is happening all over the place. And hope that the poetry and the words will be some grace in somebody's heart. And yeah. I celebrate Luca's birthday.
Oh, and, you do?
Yeah. Last year I bought a cake and put his name on it, and we all had we celebrated that day. There's a poem on my Facebook page on Andrea L. Whalen, and I think it's on Ganga Moon Yoga page too. It says I was just feelings from my heart again on the date, and it was like, I don't know if I celebrate if it's a birth date or a death date. But I say, buy the cake, right? You felt that heartbeat. You had that love inside you. And love never ends, and love doesn't die. And that I know for sure.
That's for sure. And that's why we have grief. Because it's all the love that we have for the person.
What a great reminder. What a great reminder that grief is the absolute opposite of a great, great love.
They say the grief is as hard as the love that you had.
Yeah. I wish I didn't have to have found that out. Yeah. But I totally did. Again and again.
I don't wish it on any woman to have to birth, well, not even to birth and have a miscarriage, but to have a baby that dies before 28 days. I just have no words, because there's just so much pain around that. It's 9 months of believing in something, I guess, so to speak, and loving something that you haven't even touched or
you
seen.
Feel it. Yeah, you feel it. That's Celine Dion. Love can touch one time and last for a lifetime.
Yes.
And that's a true story. And that's what brought me here today, was it's the love that lives on. And
didn't Celine Dion have miscarriages too?
You're right about something, but I don't know the exact stats. We'd have to look that up, like the exact story about that.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it.
It says 1 in 4 known pregnancies, according to just a quick search online.
Yeah, I would have never guessed that. number that high, actually. I thought maybe 1 in 10.
One spot that I read, I'm sure it's printed somewhere, it said almost 50-50 pregnancy. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's why they always say don't tell anyone till you reach the 2nd trimester.
Yeah, they do say that. So the stories need to change. We need to tell people, like, yeah, we need to just talk about that this is happening, because also when you have a miscarriage, it's so embarrassing and shameful, and you blame yourself. I blame myself for having coffee. I blame myself for chips. I blame myself for not being healthy enough, and I owned a nutrition store at the time.
Yeah.
I blamed, I just, it was all my fault.
And everything.
And then how does the husband feel? Like, that must be hard.
Yeah. I haven't had a husband on about that.
That would be an interesting show too, because we, as much as women need to lift women up, like, we're all walking each other home. Let's be real.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
Do you think losing a baby, the grief is different than losing someone else?
Yeah. Gosh, I just had a plethora of all, everything I've lost has come in as you said that. Yeah, there's an unnatural feeling. It doesn't feel natural. Maybe
because it wasn't real. Doesn't feel real.
Maybe because so at 14, all through high school, I was in the old age home. So I had a lot of best friends that were 99 years old, and I would put ketchup on their bread for hours and hours. And that didn't seem unnormal for the aging people to pass away to me. The AIDS and stuff, that seemed unnatural and violent, and I was glad I was there. But my baby, I had no idea. That not right. It seems like an unnatural process.
Yeah,
it seems unnatural. It seems like you live, like we're here. This is life. We live. We're aging, and then we die. If you think it's different, sorry to break your bubble, but never did you think the baby would go first. No. I think there's an unnatural kind of thing. I think you assume if your parent dies, okay, well, they're your parent, they're old.
Right.
But a baby is just, like the poetry says, like, never took a breath, like a little breath unheard, like brief little beauty.
And I believe John Legend and his wife had the same predicament as you did. I think it was around like 25 weeks or something.
That's right. That did spark my soul when I heard that story. I know exactly what that's like, and especially at that length, because you mentioned the first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. But then to know that there are and this is a lot of women, and they are in the hospital right now as we're talking. I have to give birth to a baby that they know that they'll never clothe or get a little footprint. They'll walk out with a footprint. Ouch.
Yeah. And what is that actually like, do you have to do that like immediately? Do you have to figure things out?
I never got a footprint. I think my baby was 2.5 pounds, and they didn't keep them back then, I think, in 2008. But I did see a Dr. Phil show after that, and there was a baby on there in an incubator at 2.5 pounds a couple years later. So I think maybe they would. My Luca was too small. But they do. You know what was sweet was there was a lady who put together this little tiny towel, and it's called Ella E.LLA, like between, it must have been what she would have named her daughter. And it was just in a little plastic bag, and she had like knitted a little sweater or something and wrote a little note, and the hospital handed that to me. And it was just a note from another mom that said that she knows what I'm going through.
Oh,
So I have it in a frame in my bedroom with some poems I wrote for him. And you just take, you take from these moments what you can get. If you have a footprint, I mean, that's your whole life that you have. And I have his ashes beside me, beside my bed, because I think babies should be with their mom. But one day for his father and their family that he has now, and for my sons, we'll put him somewhere, I think, where everyone can go. But
right, later on.
yeah, maybe if I let go.
Yes. Well, you don't have to.
It's so hard.
You don't have to let go.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's true. Like all of a sudden you have to make arrangements, and you've probably never even made arrangements for anyone before. And now you have to make it for a baby that you don't even get to really see.
I have all that paperwork here. I could you imagine cameras on like that kind of a situation? Like I have no idea what I would have even looked like, or if anything even came out of my mouth.
Yeah.
But
Lots of time.
after, just going through motions, I guess, but so traumatized with my son, with my baby, with me. And the funeral director, he looked up. I got a dab here. I'm blinking. The funeral director looked up, he was offering me some choices for things. Maybe the urn, I don't remember. It's so blocked out or gone. And he put his arm across the table and he said, "There's no charge.
Oh,
there's no charge for a funeral for a baby."
I did not know that.
Isn't that something? Because here I am. Lost my business is shut down for a couple of days. I've got my baby on my hip because there was no maternity leave for a woman in business.
Yeah.
You don't get it. So there's a sign on my door. I'm planning a funeral. I've got my little miracle baby here. And then this guy's asking me to pick out, all these things. And there's a price tag on everything if you've ever planned a funeral, which you probably know about from your app. And then he reaches across the table, and I was just like a piece of grace, a slice of a glimmer in a really dark time to hear those words.
It is. It is very hard. And I don't know what you can tell other women except that there's so many things that people say to you that I wouldn't repeat, to be honest.
I think that's my mission here. No matter how dark the stain, and now you know where the title comes from.
Yes. Yeah, it's perfect.
Poems and inspiration for the woman in pain. We need words for these things. When you're looking down and you see your insides out and all bloody, and then you're cleaning up the mess and it's smearing around the floor, and your kid is coming in because you have a baby, and then they see the blood, and then you get come on. We have to find words for these experiences. We have to have words to explain these things, to express ourselves, to get it out of our body so we're not carrying it around.
Yes.
That's
Did you notice in your research, was there any groups that were
tons
that women could get in touch with?
Yeah, I know in Canada, well, you're here with me, the PAIL online is a huge agency that deals with pregnancy and infant loss. And there must have been 27 other ones on my Google search. But of course, I don't have that sheet in front of me.
That's okay.
But yes, everywhere. I just punched in Miscarriages Canada, and they all came up. The internet is flooded with these places, which made me so much more excited for this podcast with you. Because we have all of these agencies, but there's nothing mainstream. There's nothing in the schools. There's nothing in grade 7. Everyone's having, birth control pills, but nobody's talking about 50% might pass away. How are you going to handle it?
Yes.
Here's what you can do. Here's what you can do when if you see heavy bleeding, if you have severe cramps, if you have excess weight gain and things like that. These are all things that we're walking around with. One of the most traumatizing things for me was being back at my business, being back in the store, my belly full extended. Nobody knew I lost Luca. How could I say anything? I didn't even know what happened. I was so with my baby, and everyone is saying, "Oh, congratulations, you're pregnant. Congrats, you're pregnant." But I had already given birth, and he passed away and had the funeral. But my stomach was still round, like I was pregnant. So everyone's coming in and congratulating me. That's a trauma. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one.
You feel like having this big thing on your t-shirt or a shirt or something just saying, don't mention anything.
Like it's so not natural. But how would anybody even know that they were hurting me? How would anybody even know?
But every time somebody says it, it hurts. It's like when you lose somebody and it's Christmas time, and people like cashiers don't realize it, banks don't realize it, and you've just lost somebody, and you're going through the cash and you're getting some stuff, and you couldn't care less about Christmas, but you're doing it anyways because you're making yourself do it after a death. And people say, "Oh, Merry Christmas. What are you going to do? What are your plans?" Really? It's that same kind of thing.
What a beautiful point. Yeah.
Because
how do we
they don't mean anything by it, but it triggers you and it hurts. Like somebody just put another knife in you.
It's the beauty of the human heart and how we are as human beings is that, again, me feeling the trickle down my leg and thinking my water broke and I was having a baby. Everyone was wrong. I knew it. And it's not true. But it's a beautiful thing about the human heart. And it's why I'm still here, is that the love wins, and love is stronger than death.
Yes. And what would you suggest to a woman? What 5 things would you suggest after dealing with something like that?
You know what? I would say write about it. Write it down, even if it's like some people are like, I can't write. Just put I'm here. There's blood. Like just something down on paper.
Don't say just write.
Put something down, or just say I'm pissed, or I'm sad, crying all day. Just write, because it opens a floodgate. It opens a channel for you to release that energy of what's happened. So I brought Kleenex for this conversation. I didn't think I could make it. I didn't think I could have the conversation, but I'm glad that we are, because I think that my life is for other people to get better. So,
yes.
I would say, like, the easiest thing, if you can't write something down, I would say, have No Matter How Dark the Stain just beside your bedside. And when you feel those pangs of pain or longing or love for your baby, just flip it open. Like, this isn't a page by page. Just read one poem a day. It keeps your heart soft. It keeps you connected from your head to your heart. But also, it'll give words to your emotions that you're feeling. I've been through it. I've been through 10 pregnancies. I've been through the loss. I've been through the miscarriage. It's not your experience. I understand. But there might just be a little nugget here that pierces the veil of your pain. And if only in that moment you feel love, then it's worth it. I would say talk to a friend, just keep talking about it and tell people, and don't keep the silence. The silence turns into violence. There's no benefit to being quiet. If I die tomorrow with these stories, there's no benefit. That's a sad, sad graveyard. Right. We are all here together. We are interconnected. And so that's right. Poetry, no matter how dark the stain. If you hear somebody that's going through that, I would just buy them No Matter How Dark the Stain. Just leave it here. Because they'll know when it says brief beauty or baby's breath unheard, it's going to resonate. They're going to feel what that feels like, and they're going to know that they're not alone, because the main thing here is that we all feel that it's a miscarriage, it's not talked about, and we're going through it by ourselves. And that's such a lie. That's a fierce, bold lie. So
Yeah, it is.
So buy someone a book, write things down, the poetry, talk
Get
to a
the support.
friend,
Get the
reach out to
support.
an agency.
I
Yeah,
guess.
or maybe it might be a continuous problem like what I had, miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And then maybe you want to go somewhere else and investigate that a little bit. And
Yeah.
and hopefully, hopefully I have the worst case scenario where there is no answer, and hopefully you or someone listening does get an answer and they can fix it and they can have what they're going for.
Yeah, I think the support would be helpful to get through the first couple of weeks anyways. And you had mentioned that does the government of Canada, I'm not sure about the United States, but they look at it as a disability?
Yeah, so in my research, the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal says that miscarriage is a disability. So there is a woman who had a miscarriage and then she was back to work within a couple of days, like we all are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of anxiety and depression that happens because really I took it as it's my fault that this is happening. It's like I'm a demon. So there is a lot of depression that happens after baby loss. And
plus your hormones are playing the game too.
We didn't even talk about hormones. So she was depressed and anxious and she couldn't meet the target at her work. And they had let her go, and the human rights had found that wrong. And Professor of Law David Dorey at York University says that ruling has carved out a new space within the meaning of disability to get to the issue of what disability is. How amazing is that? The ladies at PAIL, the agency, they're not surprised. It's like, yeah, like many families experience miscarriages, losing a child, she said, and it can lead to depression and post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's about time, she said, returning to work after a miscarriage can be very traumatic and trying for women, in part of the raised eyebrows. And what we talked about earlier, it says about the well-meaning coworkers who just don't understand.
The comments.
Yeah, it says miscarriage is all too often still the elephant in the room, and people don't feel comfortable discussing it.
Yeah,
I didn't feel comfortable. It's been on my mind. I didn't know if I could do the podcast myself either. But me staying in my kitchen and not talking about these things is absolutely helping no one.
Right. But it would definitely be hard in the first 5 years, right?
What?
To talk about it out in the open.
I have no idea about that. I think we just need to make it normal. I think we just need to make it nature, because it is.
Yeah.
Why are we doing that to ourselves?
Yeah.
That's like in yoga practice, that's ahimsa. Ahimsa is the first ethic you take. There is no yoga without ethics, and ahimsa is nonviolence. And that's, if you're thinking to yourself, I killed my baby, I should have done this, I should have done that, it's my fault, I'm too fat, I'm too skinny, whatever it may be, I didn't go to the gym, I knew I should have. That's violence against yourself. You are attacking yourself. You are a child of God. It is your birthright to feel love and peace.
Yes. At all times.
At all times.
Yeah. But it's a tough one, because as a mother, you're going to blame yourself anyways. It doesn't matter what happens.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm a mom, and I've got a lot of love, and I've got my 7 stars on my shoulder. I still write to them. I bought the cake. So that same mind, that's the same mind that creates a horror story out of your life, is the same mind that could create a love story.
Yeah.
Right? And we need to know that we're in charge of our power. that miscarriage is normal, that losing a baby is normal, that blood is traumatic and you can handle it.
And you can get some assistance around it.
Yeah, you're not alone. Like we're all here experiencing this together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's changing the stories. It's having these conversations that open up new pathways to new thinking patterns. The consciousness is lifted. We have access to podcasts. We can listen to things. We have people speaking from their heart, and the heart hears the heart. And we can heal these things.
And I think the hardest part for people who have a hard time having a child is that the first thing, just like grief, is why me? Why do I have to go through this? Why didn't it work? Why?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that comes up in that grief portion as well.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing you do. Yeah. Unless that's just me who just beat myself up ridiculously about it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's normal.
But also for the man looking on, what are they supposed to think? I've heard that said. I've heard that said before. That like, well, if she didn't do this, then she would have had the baby.
Yeah, I think in some abusive relationships, I've seen over the years where women do have miscarriages, and you'd like to say, well, it's for the best.
You're not wrong.
You know, I guess it depends on the type of relationship, but you hate to even put it down to that.
You do. You do hate to do that, but we need to stop hating and we need to start saying these things. And if only for a moment that it can pass, and so that we're not carrying that seed within us of, oh, I shouldn't say this. Because there's different types of silence. And I learned this doing my stillness practice for my book, Stillness in the Storm, my latest book that just came out. And there's different types of silence. There's silence where you know what's up and you're not saying it.
Yeah.
And there's silence where you hate yourself and you're like, I ain't saying shit. And there's silence. There's different types of silence. So we have to, the mind is a garden. We have to keep turning over the seeds, keep planting new good seeds.
Yes.
Miscarriage is a natural process and it needs to be part of a natural conversation. Birth control is knowing that. When I teach yoga, when I teach prenatal yoga, everyone was big on, like a few years ago, I kind of changed my tune with that now, but big on the birth plan. And I was big on the birth plan too.
Oh.
Until 15 hours and a hand up my vagina and a big fist trying to turn things around. And I remember the yoga book going across the room, me flailing out and saying, forget it. Just give me the epidural. Right?
Yeah.
And so I don't teach, when I teach prenatal, I'm like, yes, have a plan, sure. But at the same time, be ready for anything that happens. Your body is a snowflake. You are nature. Not everyone's story is the same, but whatever it is, it's going to be your story, period. And that's the most amazing part. Your baby, your miscarriage is your story. I've chosen to make a love story, and I hope that you choose to make a love story too.
Yes. And it makes everything better, I think. If you can turn that around to something loving.
Yeah, or see how you feel. I mean, the pain served me. I was able to feel deeply. I have a book of poetry here that might help other people. That's an amazing gift. There's a lot of gems in the darkness. And if we just focus on the pleasant, we're missing half of our life.
Yeah. And I think if they go through something like that, if they can get the support that is non-judgmental around them and is helpful and just listens, is there for support. They journal as much as they possibly can, and they get your book or something similar to it that helps and guides them to understand these feelings, because that's what poetry and music does. And maybe yoga maybe also might meditation.
That's going to be hard at first. It's going to be really quiet to sit still if you haven't dealt with the feelings of the pain. So psychology, my degrees in psychology is like a big filing box, and everything has a place to go. But if someone comes into my yoga class and lays down in Shavasana and closes their eyes for a couple minutes and they haven't dealt with that loss, it's coming up in your face and hit you, and they will run out of here so fast. And then 5 years later, I've seen them come back and say, Shh, I couldn't lay down. I couldn't close my eyes. And that's the reason. You can't close your eyes on things that have happened. We have to find words. I don't know if there's another book. I'm going to say it's just mine right now. That's the only one I know.
That's the only one we know. So that's the one we're going to tell everyone to get, because that's what's going to be helping.
I mean, not that I wanted a PhD in pregnancies.
Yes.
It's a lot.
Are you open to people that are having difficulties to reach out to you?
Yes, of course. I really think that the experiences that I've had and them being so extraordinary are so that I can meet people where they're at and maybe guide them to reflect their light back to them. Because I know when you're in that darkness, you cannot see the light.
No.
And that's why the last chapter of No Matter How Dark the Stain is Rise of the Goddess. Because I know you can't see stuff when you're in it, because I didn't.
No, I didn't.
But I also know the light at the end of the tunnel, and that's why we're here.
But you have to find it. You have to find the light.
By going deep into the darkness.
Yeah. And that's where everybody gets scared of.
Or actually, I think maybe people don't have to go as deep as I went, because we do have a raise in vibration. There is a higher consciousness these days than back 2008. That's true. And so that's why I feel that. So the Greeks said this. Greek for imitation is called mimesis, okay? And it's Plato's theory, actually. And it was that all forms of art are an imitation of life, of an idea of reality. Mimesis allows us to explore the relationship with our inner selves, our emotions, beyond what's possible in the real world. In poetry, a form of mimesis, the words are written at one point in time, read at another point in time, and through this mind-to-mind, heart-to-heart experience, the reader finds that she or they are transformed. That's how powerful we're talking about. So it can just be that.
Yeah.
Healing can happen like this. It's dis-ease that sometimes can take a long time, a deterioration, and that, but healing can happen in an instant. That I know for sure.
You know what I think? I think someone should buy your book and then read it to the woman. That's what I think. So
wow,
I think that's
so
what the husband, I think that's what the husband could do to help her and help him.
Oh, you're so right. I picture it like, the book, What to Expect When You're Expecting. Everyone knows that. They get pregnant and they get that book. I didn't see a miscarriage chapter in there though. But anyway, the vision for this book is a blanket of comfort, is no matter how dark the stain, homes and inspiration while you're in pain. So my vision for it is that every time I hear someone say I've had a miscarriage, and other topics that women go through, I always just picture it in a bow on the doorstep, and then they can, they'll know it, they'll resonate with it, because it's the same feeling that I've written about. They'll recognize the feelings. But just like a girl came to me at a bookstore, Kohl's, that I had a book signing, and the one poem in here called Rohypnol, about the date rape drug. The dad had bought her the book. He had a feeling something was wrong with his daughter, but he didn't quite know what. And so he saw that some of the poems were for the women in pain, and he bought it for his daughter, who's, I think she's 23, beautiful girl. But anyway, she came holding the book and said, I didn't know there were words for what happened to me.
Oh.
It is true. I didn't know there was words for miscarriage. I wrote them, but I didn't read any.
No, that's so true. It's like having a rape, like having words for that. having words of what happened, having words of how it felt, having like that's just so difficult, right? And
yeah, there's one in here called Rapist. There's a poem in here called Rape is the Name. And my publisher was like, I think we should change the name of Rape to, Sunset Cheerio or something. I'm like, no. We have been quiet for too long. That is not the point. We are going to call things as they are now because we can handle it.
yeah.
And because when we do, that's when it heals. We're not calling rape like anything other than exactly what it is.
Exactly. What kind of final message would you like to give the listeners out there that have experienced miscarriage or possibly have someone close to them?
We talked about a lot of things, so I'll bring up something new right here at the end, and I'll bring up forgiveness and just the powerful force that forgiveness has of being a key to love and self-love and self-acceptance, and to forgive yourself. If you're blaming yourself, if you feel it's all your fault, if you don't understand even like what happened to you, just forgive. And then it's not one thing. It's like love, forgiveness, forgive again. Then forgive for at Christmas time, the gift that you bought your baby that now they won't open. Forgive yourself again. Forgive yourself when you buy the cake and sitting there with your family. Just forgive yourself again. Forgive yourself the nights you stay up and you can't sleep because you felt that heartbeat.
Yeah.
Forgive the universe for that too.
Forgive yourself. Probably have a book about this thick about forgiving.
Forgive yourself for the coffee. But the thing I didn't know about forgiveness, I just thought you forgive once and then you're good. But as life keeps moving, you have to re-forgive and re-forgive and re-forgive. And I never knew that. And that's why I want to share that with people, that in case somebody else might have done what I'm like, I forgave my dad, so I'm good. No. I have to forgive him over and over again. It might be at the funeral. It might be at a birthday party. He's not there. You have to it keeps on. It's like love. It's like music. It's like yoga. It's like poetry. It's like you keep on. I say, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah.
Keep loving, keep forgiving, keep writing, keep reading poetry.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. That's lovely. I hope that this resonates with so many people out there, to help and guide them through this journey that none of us chose. We didn't choose that avenue. Whatever was meant to be was meant to be. I mean, I remember my grandmother saying she had 12 children and had a miscarriage, even in the early 1900s. So they probably didn't know how to deal with it back then either. So we're not much further ahead even now.
Amen.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Andrea, for coming on and sharing your experience and your tips. It was awesome that you reached out to me. So great. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, listeners, for coming on. And I hope that you like, share, and subscribe to the show, as well as all of the information is down in the box below in the description box. Just click on more and a whole big window will pop up for you.
Do we have a link to the book there, Tina?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Okay, good. Or they can hashtag no matter how dark the stain, and hopefully they'll see something.
Yes. And also, if I haven't, I'll double check, but I think I have your contact as well. So that they could reach out to you if need be. So feel free to reach out to each and every one of us. We're here to help you. And we're here each and every week to share a story, a tragedy, or a taboo that we need to start talking about more. And that's why Andrea reached out to us, because I think it's important to talk about things such as this. And when you can make it so that it's more talkable, is that a word?
Yes.
it makes it a little easier. It makes it a little bit easier to talk about. It's like death and dying and the loss. It's all that same type of topic. So thank you, everybody. If you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe to our show, you guys are amazing. I'd love to have each and every one of you on our show, as well as we have a new one coming up shortly about a hospice nurse. So that will be very interesting as well. And yesterday we spoke about a cult that's very famous in the news right now, the ATI cult that the TV show 19 and Counting was all about, the Duggar family. So having said that, reach out to Andrea, purchase her book. The link is down below. And remember, we're not Superman. We need a plan. We need to get a plan for ourselves. Don't count on your husband and don't count on a partner to do it for you, but take the reins and get your stuff together so that when something does happen, whatever it might be, that you have some sort of plan in your phone that can help guide you through the process so that when that shock does settle down, you didn't have to be frustrated and worried about where things were and how you were going to do anything. It's all laid out for you. So thank you, everybody, and stay tuned for next week's show. And I love you. Stay
Love
safe
you.
and kind. Till next time. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.